morning, everybody, or maybe it's good evening, depending on where part of the world that you're in. But I'm delighted that you're able to join us today for this fascinating topic that always seems to pique everybody's interest. Just looking at the registration sheet today, I was so excited to see representation from over 20 from 20 countries around the world joining this webinar. I guess whenever Jenny shows up, it's always people tend to draw a crowd. But good morning or good evening, guys. My name is Jim Tam. I'm the head of global business for Gnowbe. I think many of you guys have heard of Gnowbe and maybe you are even customers of ours, so welcome. And those of you guys have not, you guys are in for a treat because we're going to be using Gnowbe today as part of our webinar. But before we get started, I'd love to introduce Jenny Dearborn. Jenny Dearborn is currently the Chief People Officer for Klaviyo. But when I first met Jenny, it was about a little bit over a year ago when she was part of the SAP DIO mentorship program, which Gnowbe was a part of the SAP DIO accelerator program. And since then, Jenny's been a great advisor, friend of Gnowbe's, and she knows everything there is to know about learning and people, and it's been great to use her as a sounding board, and I'm delighted to have her join me today for this webinar. So
thank you,
anyway,
Jim.
Jenny.
Delighted to be here. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, well, great. So today, if you guys have not received a email from our marketing department, you guys will see in the chat that you guys are invited to share or participate in a program that we've created specifically for our webinar. If this is not your first webinar, then you certainly know the drill. At Gnowbe, we do not use PowerPoint. We use Gnowbe to go through our to do our webinars, because we just find that it's just so much more interactive, a lot more social, and it's a lot more memorable, because long after you leave, you click the leave meeting after this webinar, you're still going to have a token of what the topic is and the friendships that you've made along the way. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to first take you to my phone. The reason I'm doing that is because I have Gnowbe on my phone, and Gnowbe is a mobile-first platform. Okay, so all that means is that when we design our content, it's really specifically for the user that's using one of these handheld devices. So what you see here in the background is my dog, but in the lower left-hand corner, you're going to see the Gnowbe app. And if you download the Gnowbe app already to participate in this program, please click that. And then now you're going to come to see our home screen, which is very much like Netflix. So the program that we're going to go with today is the Upskilling-Reskilling-Cross training program. So in this program is going to be where Jenny's slides are. That's yours to keep at the end of the webinar. Plus, also, you're going to find that this is an interactive way for you to participate and communicate with us. Certainly, you can do it in the Zoom chat window, or you can do it directly in the Gnowbe program. So without further ado, I'm just going to take you to session 1, which is a little bit of an icebreaker, right? So that you guys get to know me a little bit better, get to know Jenny a little bit better. And then we also want to, leave a couple of actions for you to for us to get to know you better, and for the rest of the audience around the world to also get to know you better. So let's go first with how you doing, right? Obviously, these are strange times. It's always nice to check in with people just to make sure that everybody's doing okay. And the fact that you're able to download this webinar, I think, that's usually a very, very good sign. So if Joey was to ask me how am I doing, I am going to say I am so excited for this webinar. I've heard Jenny speak before, and I still can't get enough. Whenever she speaks, my jaw is usually on the floor. So I'm very, very excited about this webinar. So after that, I see that 60% of you guys are as well. Okay, and this is great. This is the first webinar that I've done where there's not one person that clicked, I'm a little concerned about COVID-19. Hopefully we're coming about the other side, and people are viewing the world with a lot more optimism now than they had before. That's fantastic. Okay. Now, the next action here, you're going to get a little bit more of a deeper profile about Jenny. Certainly, you guys can do this reading, but it's funny because when we were doing this program, we had to remind ourselves this is micro learning, so you got to keep things in bite-sized pieces. But all the accomplishments and all the accolades that Jenny has accumulated over the years, it was tough to keep everything, onto one action. But the one thing that you don't know about Jenny probably is that she idolizes a particular superhero. So, and I have had the fortune to visit her living room one time, and I can tell you that she's definitely a collector. So if you guys want to take a wild guess, who would that be? Go ahead. Okay, all right, if you guys have done it, then I'm gonna say Wonder Woman. Okay, and that is true. because she loves Wonder Woman. Okay. Jenny, is there a backstory there perhaps you want to share with the audience?
Um, it's too long of a story, but yes, just completely obsessed with Wonder Woman.
Okay. All
I
right.
chose it.
There she
Chose the
is.
right answer.
Now that is an amazing picture. Okay, very, very cool. All right. So now next a little bit about me. So as I mentioned, I head up global business for Gnowbe, but prior to that, I don't only joined Gnowbe last year, although I've known about Gnowbe since it was just an idea in our CEO's head because I've known the CEO for well over 20 years when I first started my career at Citibank. Since then, since after Citibank, I worked for other companies, but I've always, had passion for sales and helping customers solve problems. So that's kind of how I continue to stay on the path of business development and client success. But if you guys see my other picture, and you know I love dogs, but can you guess what's my dog's name? Okay, if you guys don't know it, I'm gonna say Bobo because that's his name. But what you guys may not know, this is Bobo 3.0 because I've had three Bobos in my life, and this is the third one, and they all seem to be, black dogs too. But he's been a great friend to me, especially during COVID. So anyway, just want to share a little bit about myself with you. Okay, now that you know a little bit about Jenny, know a little bit about me, we love to know a little bit about you. So here's where you're able to take a picture of yourself. Maybe you want to do it live, or maybe you want to pull it up from your library. But we certainly want to meet you just like you've met us. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take a photo, and we're going to go, and I'm going to share it with the rest of the group. And this is one of the unique things about Gnowbe is that even when you're taking a lesson, even when you're trying to learn, you're never alone because you can find that you're going to be able to make friends because they're taking the same program along with you. Okay, I see Chiming there. Hi, Abdul. How are you? Thanks for joining us today. I see Tanya. I see Muriel. Muriel. I think that's a llama. That is a llama. Okay. Well, that's great. It's nice to see everybody. And this is the human part of Gnowbe where you get to interact with others as you're learning. So you're just not learning from the peer, from the point of view of whoever curated the program. You're learning from your peers, and this makes it a lot more fun and hopefully a lot more enriching. So now the next action we're going to ask you is to share a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where do you work? And what is it about today's webinar that you would like to take away? Like, what's the one thing that you're hoping to learn today? So I'm gonna say, I hope to learn how to stay relevant. Okay. And then after I've done that, I'm gonna share my answer with the community that's on this webinar. And then I'm going to be able to see what you guys are looking to take away from this lesson. So Abdul says, what I'm hoping to learn today is no specific goals, just to learn anything new to broaden my mind. That's great. So I'm going to like Abdul's answer, and I'm going to say that's great. And this is the real power of Gnowbe, where you can be able to communicate with people asynchronously, wherever they are taking your program at the same time. Say that's great. Okay, now Abdul will get a notification that Jim liked his comment and so forth. So I'm going to get to see other people's, and Muriel wants to see trending skills and how not to become obsolete. That is great, Muriel. That is great. Okay, so okay, let's move along here. Now, obviously, what I shared with you was the group board, guys. So, and over here, we're really big into peer-to-peer learning and peer-to-peer sharing. So what you're going to see here on the bottom underneath the yellow arrow is the group. And this is where you're going to be able to see everybody's shares, photos, narratives, comments, and then you're going to be able to develop friendships long after this webinar is over. And hopefully you guys will keep this program on your phone and continue to stay connected and build relationships with everyone. Okay. So on that note, I am going to stop sharing my phone, and I'm going to go online and share my screen instead. And we're going to go directly into these slides that Jenny has prepared for us to talk a little bit about upskilling and reskilling. So maybe the first order of business is I'm going to take it to the first slide where Jenny's gonna talk a little bit about the why, what's happening with us in the Industrial Revolution.
Great, thank you, Jim. That was absolutely a complete blast to follow along on my phone. Thank you for that. So I'd like to talk about the forces that are shaping the future of work. And really what we've experienced with COVID has sped up this process. So we would say probably a year ago that these major forces are multiple years out, and now they are happening now. So it makes this presentation and this topic so incredibly timely. So if we want to just sort of put some context around these forces that are shaping the future of work, it's really by starting to understand the industrial revolutions and sort of the ebb and flow of these changes, that this change cycle is all quite normal and quite natural. So really where we are now is on the precipice of the fourth industrial revolution, or not even on the precipice, we are in the fourth industrial revolution. So the first industrial revolution is when we started, putting really basic manufacturing next to water or hydropower or maybe wind power. And the second industrial revolution is we had those same basic machinery, but we brought in electricity to that, and the machinery got a little bit more advanced. We often think about Henry Ford and the auto manufacturing as the first kind of mass production industrial revolution, but it was really the meatpacking industry in Chicago where we saw the second industrial revolution. The third industrial revolution is also called the computer revolution or the digital revolution. And that's where really we started to see things be put online, right? And where we are now in the fourth industrial revolution is also known as cyber physical systems. And it's really the combination of your physical world and your digital world coming together, that everything that we do in our digital world creates a digital footprint, creates digital waves, and then we're able to combine that with our actual physical space, having sensors everywhere we go, and leaving this digital footprint. And then it's really the analytics that you put on top of all of this data to be able to understand human behavior, customer behavior, even better. So these industrial revolutions come and go, and with each wave of this, skills come, skills go. New jobs come, old jobs become obsolete. And so there's a lot of fear around the changes that are happening now, but it's super important just for the context of all of this to understand how resilient we are as humans, and how natural this is for us to deal with these changes. And each industrial revolution gets a little bit tighter in terms of time, from 120 years to 100 years to 80 years. So we become even more resilient. So we think about times like this as being stressful, but remember, as humans, we are built for this. We are built to embrace change. Our brains sort of light up with dopamine when we embrace those challenges and we embrace those changes, and that we are really designed as humans to get through this. So let's look at the forces that are shaping the future of work within this context of the Industrial Revolution. So if we could go to the next slide. Are we frozen, maybe? No. Can you hear me, Jim?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Okay, so thank you. So the forces that are shaping the future of work, there are really 6 significant forces. So big data, that everything we do leaves digital footprint. Everything we do has sensors in it, and that we are trying to collect as much data as we can. As business owners and as consumers, we are creating data. Technology, the idea that anything that can be automated will be automated. The next significant force is how socially connected we are as a species around the world. Also very important, the fourth trend is the demographic shifts that we see as a species around the world. We are aging, how we are changing, in which countries and in which age groups are changing the most around the world is a significant force. How complex our work environments are, and then how fast the markets are shifting. So that's really what's pushing the future of work now. So we could take a look at this first one, big data.
Do you see the big data, Jenny?
I don't see it. It's not changing on my screen. There we go. That's fine. Okay, so the first significant shift is big data. So the Internet of Things is a term that was coined in about 2009. And that's when we started having sensors in really every aspect of our commercial and our personal lives, not just sensors in a and we used to have it just like on bridges and to measure traffic flows, or to measure earthquakes, but we really now have sensors in every aspect of our lives. Sensors are less than a penny each to manufacture. So we see IoT connected diapers, right, that send an alert to your phone, let you know when your baby's diaper is wet and needs changing. So really everything in our lives can be, anything that can be connected to the internet will be connected to the internet, and we will be creating data from everything that is humanly possible. So we have 50 connected devices per human in the United States. So your wearables, your watch, all of the things that are in your life, that's how, on average, how many devices each human in the United States has. So let's look at the next slide.
Okay. I think there's a delay on the slides for you, Jenny. So it's now we're at the big data is everywhere slide.
Yeah, so important to really note how prevalent data is, and that some societies are using it in a more creative or aggressive way than other societies. So these are just two examples from China, where citizens get a citizen score, and you can cash in that score to get higher queue placement for getting your tax paperwork filed, or getting your utilities turned on, things like that. And you can get a lower score, which will put you at a lower point in the queue to do some of those services. So there's in the United States, we're certainly looking to China as the country that is experimenting the most on how to use personal data. And so there's different countries have different opinions about the use of our personal data and big data. But so we can move to the next slide. Important just to remember how prevalent it is. So.
Yep. So for technology and automation, I think there's a slight delay.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. So again, for technology and automation, these are some pictures that I took of a robot bartender in Las Vegas. So anything that can possibly be automated will be automated. Jim, you can go ahead and hit the next slide, and I'll continue the commentary. And we really need to be thinking about, as humans, what is the work that is uniquely human? What is the things that only we as humans can do? And you think about the role of the bartender, the bartender is a therapist, right? Also mixes drinks, but is also a therapist. So what is the work that that only the human in the bartender can do? You can automate the drink part, but having a conversation with the bartender, that's the human part, right? Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's absolutely true. And there's some things that machines cannot replace. And here's a poll. So what we like to do is ask the audience now, which of the following jobs do you think are the least likely to be replaced by machines? As you said, as Jenny said, anything that can be automated will be automated at some point, but maybe there's some that might be automation proof. So I just wanted to put this poll out there for the audience. Which one of these jobs do you think will be the least likely to be replaced by humans, by machines? I'll give it 2 seconds. All right, I'm gonna say sportsman and CEO. I'm gonna say CEO. Let's see what everybody says. Yeah. Okay, I think the large majority of the people have gotten it right. I think people at some point are still gonna wanna be entertained by people. So sports and athletes will always be athletes. I don't think there's a whole lot of fun watching mechanical dogs run around the track, but I think we like to, as humans, we like to see other humans, succeed and be impressed by the people with a lot more talent than themselves. So, and CEOs, I think leadership is always going to be something that might be hard to replace. You can always think about AI as making right decisions, but there's some decisions that I just need gut in order to make, and I think that is probably a leadership. So, what do you any thoughts about that, Jenny?
I think that as humans, we have an endless capacity to figure out ways to entertain ourselves. So I agree that entertainers will likely always be human. But I think that accountants, retail salespeople certainly will be automated, accountants and drivers, but leadership and entertainment is something that won't be.
Yeah, I think drivers, you're going to see that in our lifetime. Autonomous driving. So, and so being an ex-banker, when Jenny shared the slide with me, I got a kick out of it because there was a time in the 80s when I worked for, big Citibank, we thought tellers were going to go away. We thought, just point them to machines. And lo and behold, 30 years later, they're still here.
Yeah, so the elimination of jobs is something that people are definitely afraid of. Robots and technology are taking my jobs, taking our jobs. And it's important to remember that when we say the elimination of jobs, we really mean change, right? So the job description is going to be really different. Maybe the title is the same, but we really need to think about it based on the tasks. Well, what are the tasks that person is doing? Maybe the retail human that works at a store will still be a human, but their tasks are going to be very, very different. So when the automatic teller machine, the ATM machine came out, people said it's the elimination of tellers. And what it did was change their jobs, because 30 years after the ATM machine came out, there's actually more bank tellers than there were before the ATM machine. So there's more bank tellers after than before, but the job is completely different. The job is much more human, right? There's more customer service, there's more sales, there's more consultative selling, there's more interaction with customers. It's not just taking deposits and dispensing cash. So the job has changed significantly. So that's what we need to be prepared for and resilient to deal with changes. So we're not headed into a situation where there's not enough jobs. We're headed into a situation where there's not enough education to support the change, to deal with the change in jobs. So we need humans more than ever, but we need humans that are very plastic and elastic to be able to adapt to change, which is why a tool like Gnowbe is so important, because you need this constant micro learning to be able to adapt to the constant change.
Yeah, no, that's certainly true. And the faster you can pivot, and the faster you're going to have opportunities available to you. Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. So now we're going to move on to go in digital.
Yeah. So certainly how socially connected we are is a significant shift in the future of work. We're headed to a place where 60% of the global economy is online in some way. So if you are not online, if you don't have an online presence, you are at a significant disadvantage in your business and in your life. And now, there are many countries that are saying having access online is one of the fundamental rights of citizenry in those countries. So it's a very, very significant shift in the future of work.
Okay.
One of the things that's really amazing is how we are aging as a society, as a global species. So we, in a lot of countries, our population is pretty much flat, or even flat to declining. In the United States, we have an aging population and a declining birth rate. Europe, Latin America, an aging population, a declining birth rate. So we are trending towards a global population of 10 billion. But all of that growth is coming in Asia and especially in Africa. So if you were born today in North America, today is your birthday, you are 0 years old starting today, you have a 50% chance of living to 105. And if you're born today in Japan or in Spain, you have a 50% chance of living to 110. So we are aging as a society. We need to rethink education. We need to rethink retirement planning. We need to rethink our approach to savings. Education can't be something that you cram into the first 20% of your life, and then you're going to learn something and that's going to carry you through, because that's just not the case anymore. We're going to live, we're going to live to be 100, which means we have to work until we're 80, which means you're going to have a 60-year career, right? I'm 50 years old. I'm going to have a 50-year career. My parents are 80. They had a 40-year career. My kids that are 20, they will have a 60-year career. That's just the way it goes. And so you need to have an approach to education and lifelong learning that is constantly keeping up with that change, right? You have to, and it's not, you have to go back and get a 3-year degree or a 4-year degree every 10 years. That's not going to cut it, right? You need to have your baseline of learn how to learn, and then you layer on top of that constant micro learning, right? Every single day, learning something new, and you layer that on top of the ability to learn and change and the ability to think critically. And then you add constant learning on top of that. That's how you stay on top of this 60-year career and working until you're 80 and living until you're 100. It's really the only way you're going to be able to keep up.
And that's scary, but so true, and I see it coming already. So now this is, we're going to just poll the audience here a little bit, as Jenny was saying that we're all going to, work a little bit longer, but at the age that, I just want to take a poll from the audience, at what age do you think you will be retiring? And certainly Jenny says, there's certain countries that might be, you might age a little bit longer and live a little bit longer than others, great. But, I can't live forever because I don't have enough money. So at some point we're going to need to, we don't want to outlast our income either. So I don't know how long I'm going to, I think I'll probably retire probably close to the 70, 75. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, I'm a trooper, but it'd be interesting to see what anybody else says. Okay. Wow. Okay. Many of us think that we're going to be working for longer than 75 years. Wow. There must be a younger crowd out there, Jenny. Yeah. Okay. I think the days that the people thinking that they can retire early are probably the minority. Okay. Well, this is.
I mean, what are you going to do? You retire early? You retire early and then you're going to sit on your porch in a rocking chair for 45 years? That's ridiculous.
No, that would be ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't thought about that. I'd probably just go back and teach or do something, because it seems like everybody needs to learn. So maybe teaching profession is probably, a pretty safe bet.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to share a slide that Jenny was saying about the life expectancy, depending on where you are in your age now, and how much do you think you're going to need to work?
So what I love about this is just how easy it is to visualize your career duration, right? So, if you're 20 years old today, you have probably a 50 57, 58, 60-year career. And so it's not only can you work longer because you're healthier longer, but you will have to work longer because our global retirement systems will not be there to support, you know, 40 years of retirement, right? You will have to work because you are living longer. You will have to work longer to be able to pay for yourself in retirement. So we are all countries are pushing retirement ages higher, and if they're not, they're really setting themselves up for a very significant economic crisis in the future. We may be at the upper limit of life expectancy at about 105, 110, but 110, we'll see. We'll see when we get there. So because of this life expectancy, we have to change our education model, right? So the old approach used to be what a lot of researchers called sort of the 3-stage life. You learn something, for the first, whatever, 25% of your life, and then you go do that thing. So I'm going to learn to be an accountant, and I'm an accountant, and then I'm a retired accountant, and then I'm a dead accountant, right? And that just doesn't change very much, just being an accountant. Maybe you add some technology to it, but the fundamental concepts doesn't change. And really where we are now, because information is changing so quickly, you need to learn, and you need to learn to unlearn, and then you need to learn to relearn. And that's the most important skill that you can go grab for that early part of your life, and then be prepared for a much longer career. You know, instead of 40 years of something that's the same, you need to prepare for 60 years of change, right? But if your foundation is those intellectual muscles of how to learn and unlearn, and your change agility and your learning agility, then that constant change in your career is less disruptive. It's easier for you to adapt. And really the most successful professionals in the future of work are the ones who are going to be the most comfortable with change.
Now, this is very, very telling. Here's a quote: "You know, the most important skill to acquire now is the willingness and the learning how to learn." I think
right.
when I look back at my college, I wish I can take my college years over again. Now that now I'm a little bit more mature, and I understand that you don't learn to get a grade. You learn to develop skills that will make you useful down the road. So
exactly.
Okay. Now we're going to move on to the future work and the complexity and and shifting markets. All right. Now we're going to talk about 21st century skills and what's required.
So 21st century skills, it's really incredibly important. You sort of say, well, what is learning to learn? How do you break that apart? What does that really mean? And it's your capacity to be a lifelong learner. And I like this slide. There's lots of different views of it, but I like this because it's the most universal from the World Economic Forum. And it says your critical thinking skills, right? Your creativity, your problem solving skills, communication, leadership. These are the things that make you truly human, right? These are the things that differentiate us from robots, from automation. These are the things that can't be outsourced, can't be automated, can't be done by a robot. Is curiosity and intuition, right? And the ability to listen, and the ability to be adaptable, and empathy, and cross-cultural awareness, right? These are the things that make us truly human. These are the skills that are the hardest to teach, right? These are the things that differentiate us from technology. These are the things that differentiate leaders from lower level employees, individual contributors. So these are the things that we really need to foster for the future of work. And you can, as long as you know where to go get that data point and how to use a calculator, you don't have to be that computer yourself. You need to be a human, right? You need to express your innate human skills and capabilities. So I really love this as we look at the most important skills required to be successful in the 21st century.
Yeah, no, it's all about skills. I mean, this is the new currency. And when we talk to countries and governments and employers, they're all clamoring, we want people with skills. Because I think now, especially with the internet, any one of us can be the smartest person in the room because we can Google anything. So it's not just about knowing stuff, it's knowing what to do with this stuff is what's going to make you very relevant to your employer or whoever your
Yeah,
future
exactly.
employer
And
might be.
I hear that. Sorry. Yeah, I hear that all the time from my clients that I work with. That it's don't just show me the data. Tell me what it means. What is the story? What is the narrative that goes with this data or these facts or this information? If you can just spit that out, you're just a computer. But it's the interpretation and the meaning and the insight that you can bring to that data. That is what is unique. That's what is uniquely human. So, when we think about technology skills versus soft skills, for a long time, we were, all governments around the world, we were pushing STEM, STEM, STEM. And we were saying the most important thing is for you to get STEM skills. And well, that's true, but if you just are the best programmer in the world, but you don't have an ethical foundation to put that programming on top of, or you don't have a moral compass that helps you frame how to use that amazing machine learning or artificial intelligence thing that you just created, then that's actually kind of dangerous. And I wouldn't want you in my company as the chief human resources officer. I don't know that I would want the smartest programmer in the world if they couldn't make the decision between what was appropriate to go program and what wasn't. So we thought we needed STEM skills, but really the most in-demand skills are human skills, right? It's management, it's communication, it's all of those interactive skills. Certainly as a enterprise sales rep, there's very complex interpersonal human skills that you need to be successful there. Yeah. So I do like this slide because it breaks that out really nicely.
Okay. And the audience, if you guys have any questions for Jenny, please make sure you feel free to put it into the chat room, and we'll get to it at when we can. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the complexity in the workplace because things are changing, not just COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting to sort of track the trends of what employees are worried about and what CEOs are worried about. So what CEOs are concerned about is the same during COVID as before. Is my business, are they going to be able to grow? Can I grow my business as fast as I need to? Maybe I don't have enough creative people. And what are we going to do to stay relevant as a business? And, am I investing in the right country? So certainly the movement of business to new economies is an inward focus for 2020, but really CEOs are worried about does my workforce have the human skills that it needs? Is it prepared to really be as creative as we need them to be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you talk to every CEO, their number one concern is always about talent, and do they have the right talent in order to make them to get move the business forward. Number two is cybersecurity. That's kind of tells you, what the CEOs are thinking in terms of risk to the business and how do you make sure the business does, continues to thrive. It's going to be beyond people power.
Exactly. So you kind of take these two pieces of anxiety, what are CEOs worried about and what are employees worried about? And it's this really complete picture. So employees are worried about the availability of jobs and keeping their skills relevant, right? Can I learn at the pace that I need to learn so that I can always be marketable, so I can always be employable? Companies can't make a promise to every employee that they will always be employed, but we can make a promise that we will keep you employable, right? That we will invest in you, invest in your development, invest in your learning to keep you employable. So employees worry that they may not have the right training and they may not have the right skills to get the best job possible. Employees do worry that automation will take over their jobs, and so they just don't understand how human skills and technology interact in the future. And then a huge percentage believe it's their responsibility to take their learning and development into their own hands, which is true. So in generations that are older than me, you know, so baby boomers would say it's my employer's job to keep me relevant and train me. So I'm a Gen Xer, and I would say it is a partnership between my company and me to keep me relevant and to keep me trained. And then millennials after me, and then the Gen Z, you know, they very much believe it's their responsibility. So it sort of changes with time from, you know, I'm not responsible at all, my boss is going to make sure that I'm smart, to, you know, to now you have people coming into the workforce understanding that it's their responsibility to keep themselves smart, and they can't expect their employer to do that for them.
No, that's a great shift. I remember when I was first got into the workforce, one of the questions I asked my employer was, hey, do you have tuition reimbursement? You know, it was like all the things that as an employer you're supposed to do for your employees. But now the paradigm shifted that we all need to be accountable and responsible for our own personal development.
Yeah, exactly. And so a significant shift in workforce complexity is sort of our expectations around career mobility, and that we need to be very flexible as humans to change our expectations around our career progression. So it used to be in the past, when you had just a 40-year career, that it was sort of this constant up and to the right. You know, every 2 years you would get a promotion, and that's just not the case anymore. We have, you know, probably now we have these longer stretches of time, and you'll have more time as an individual contributor before you become a people manager, and those jumps are going to feel more jarring, right? So it used to be these safer little mini micro steps, where you would, you know, become a team lead of a team of 2, and then you would have a little team of 5, and then a 7 and 12. So you could sort of practice being a manager as you moved up. And that's just not the case anymore. You will have these sort of big jumps that you're feeling now. And in the future, it's going to be much more cyclical. It's still up and to the right, but there are points on this graph where you will, you know, you'll learn something, you'll become an expert, you're the top of your field, and then the world changes and you're going to need to regroup and learn something new and totally get re-educated, and then be the top of your field doing something else. So that down cycle is going to be lower than when you were at the high for your last job, right? So those down cycles of learning are not going to feel great at all. And so the more you can smooth this curve out, so education will help you smooth this curve out, right? So if you stay in some place too long and you hold on to something as that job or that company or that type of work is changing, and you're the last to change to something new, when that job goes away, you're going to have a pretty significant regroup, right? You're going to have a pretty significant fall, and then a re-education, and then a reclimb back up. But you can smooth that curve out through constant, you know, you can basically take both ends of that green graph and pull it hard through education, and you can straighten that out for yourself. I like this slide quite a bit because it is, it really talks about how the world is changing so much around us, right? And that not too long ago, the 5 largest companies in the world, only one of them was a technology company. And now you see, of the 5 largest companies in the world, they're all technology companies. And really, you know, we are becoming, the world is becoming a technology company. So if you're a computer scientist, you're just as likely to work in a tech company than in a non-tech company, because every company needs technologists. And every company needs people that can marry those human skills and those technology skills together, right? Famous quote about software eating the world. And if we look at this, we look at the next slide about rapidly shifting markets, one of the important things to notice in this slide is about really what kills off businesses is not being customer centric, is not exercising your human skills, right? It's when companies are not empathetic, when companies don't listen, when companies become arrogant, and that's what kills them off. So it's important to remember that Netflix did not kill Blockbuster, right? Blockbuster did not innovate fast enough. And Blockbuster was more concerned with sponsoring bowl games than listening to customer feedback about their late fees, and listening to, you know, the trends in what the customer's preferences were. And they created a space where Netflix could come in with technology and a different business model to disrupt their business. You know, that Uber did not kill the taxi industry, right? The taxi industry was set in its ways, doing something the way they've always done it for 100 years or 80 years, and not changing with the times, not listening to customer feedback, you know, and they, through their sort of narrow view, created a space for a technology player to come in and totally disrupt them, right? So we need to think about, well, what are we doing in our businesses that is, when we're not listening to our customers, we're not listening to their feedback, we're not interested in what is important to our customers, we're not being empathetic, we're not exercising our human skills, and we might be creating an opportunity for some upstart to come in and disrupt us because we're not paying attention.
No, it just triggers something about higher education, Jenny, right? You think about all the universities, and obviously people say, well, COVID's turned their world upside down, but I don't think so. E-learning, and they're maybe, you know, arrogant to not evolve, because education's been like that for 200 some odd years, and it hasn't changed. And COVID's not changing them as much as they need to change amongst, you know, even before that. Okay, exactly. So now we have we put this in here just so you can ask Jenny any questions, you know, even after the webinar, if you want to, you know, share your ideas about the 6 forces that she had shared. But what I'll do is let me exit out of here. And then if you guys have any questions for Jenny, you know, feel free to use the chat window. And as we're coming to the last session of our program, we're going to start off with a question, a poll. So obviously Jenny had mentioned a lot about, you know, how is your company future-proofing you? You know, although we think that a lot of the responsibility is going to be upon the individual to make sure they are continuously learning and developing themselves, you know, we also think that the company should at least provide some resources, right? So just as a poll to the audience out there, you know, if you can share with what you think your company is preparing you, are they preparing you for the future? And if so, which one do you think is the best answer to this question? My company's identified my skills gaps and have provided me with resources to continuously learn, or they provided me some resources to upskill, but there's certainly room to improve. Or, you know, maybe my company has done some face-to-face training, but not really a whole lot of online resources are made available. And then lastly, maybe the companies are not investing in employee development as you would think. I work for an e-learning company. I work for Gnowbe, so I get all the free programs that I can take and consume. So I think my company's doing pretty well for me in terms of allowing me to invest in my own personal development. Okay. All right. Seems like the majority of the companies that you work for is doing a good job of making resources available to you. So that's great. Is this something that you're surprised at, Jenny, or you think this is pretty much in line with what you had expect?
It seems high. I would say looking at the questions, my guess is that most people would say my company is doing some things right, but there's also opportunities for improvement. So yeah, that's right.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, is there responsibility befallen upon HR to help with this continuous learning, Jenny?
It does fall on HR, which makes it very tough for us to be HR professionals these days. The HR professional of the future needs to figure out that balance between what is the work that only humans can do and what is the work that only technology can do, and where can humans and technology sort of coexist to help each other. So it really is the role of, you used to say organizational design or workflow analysis. The HR professional of the future is going to do the organization design between humans and technology. And really the best HR professionals are going to be the ones that understand that balance and going to say, okay, humans do this, technology does that. Here's how we have the optimal mix. And that's going to be really, really hard for HR professionals.
Yeah. So Jenny, I've got a question from Jamal Murray. Jenny, can you share an example of how a large enterprise has successfully executed learning strategies to effectively measure business impact?
To measure business impact, I'm going to be quite selfish and say I wrote the book on this. So I wrote a book called Data Driven, and it is a step-by-step how-to for enterprise organizations to measure the effectiveness of learning and development. So there are, it only takes 4 hours to read it. It's 250 pages, but it really does give a step-by-step on how to design programs to be measured and what the scorecards should be looking like, as you roll out data-driven programs. It's the best thing that you can possibly do for your organization, for your company where you work, is to measure the business impact results of your programs.
Okay. Jamal, we'll definitely send you an email with the title of Jenny's book, so you can take a look at it on Amazon. All right. So
I like this slide because it sort of reinforces the importance of starting with strategy for any HR professional. We've talked about some of the bigger trends, right? We've talked about the 6 forces shaping the future of work. What are the demographic shifts and the geopolitical events, things like that. That's incredibly important. And then you say, how do these things shape what our business is? Who are we? What is the purpose? What is our reason for being as a business? And then you, from there, right? So that's your boss, right? Your CEO. And then you say, well, within that, what is the mission of our company? And then from there, you say, well, what is our corporate goals and objectives? And then you say the strategy that you're going to achieve those corporate goals and objectives, and then your talent strategy, right? So then it's your HR strategy. So who are we? What are our human capital? Who are we? What do we need to know? What do we need to do to be able to connect all the way up through to the purpose of our company and sort of global forces? So when I was Chief Talent Officer at SAP and as a Chief People Officer now, I think about what are the forces going on in the world? How does that affect my company? What is my company doing? And then what is the people strategy that I need to develop to help my company be able to exist and survive and thrive in the world? And then you ultimately get down to, at a very fundamental level, saying, these are the goals and objectives that I have at the company. These are the humans that I have at the company. Can these humans achieve these goals? If they can, great, build a bridge, a knowledge, education, and learning bridge for the humans at your company to achieve the goals that your corporation set out for you. And then you have to fundamentally ask yourself, can the humans at my company, the 200 people that work here or the 2,000 people that work here, can these 2,000 humans achieve the corporate goals that the corporation has set out for itself? And if they can, great, create a knowledge and education and learning bridge to get, you know, these humans to be able to achieve these goals. And if they can't, you might need to change out the humans, right? You might need to get different humans to achieve those goals. And that's part of your job as a chief learning officer, is to be able to say, can these humans, are these humans trainable? Can these humans learn what needs to be learned to achieve these future state strategies? My opinion is they almost always can. And that's your job as the chief learning officer, is to create those education and learning experiences to get your humans from point A to point B. It's very, very rare that the humans absolutely cannot grow and change to be those future state humans that you need.
Right. So Jenny, we do have one question from the audience here. As an HR executive, how could higher ed institutions meet the needs of relearning and retooling your workforce?
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure and on corporate education leaders right now. I think that this is the time for corporate education leaders to double down, to get double the budget, to work twice as hard, to keep their workers, employees ready for the future. I think that probably the most important thing is establishing a learning culture, and to get across to the humans that work at your company the importance of learning something new every single day, and constant change. Learning is not something that will happen 1 week a year or 1 day a quarter. You know, this is not something that is periodic. Learning is something that happens every single day, a couple minutes every single day, all of the time, in every spare moment. And that's how you create a learning culture that is comfortable with constant change.
But it all starts with HR learning first, right?
It all starts with HR. It all starts with HR, and I like this. I like this graphic, because it's the importance of putting your own oxygen mask on first, right? So if you don't help yourself, you're not going to be in a position to help others, right? So it starts with HR. HR has to be comfortable with change. HR has to be comfortable with technology. HR has to be comfortable with data, making data-driven decisions. HR needs to be comfortable with the idea of learning something new all the time and pushing itself out of its comfort zone every single day. These are hard things. These are hard things. You know, this is, you know, part of the reason why most successful CHROs don't come from HR, right? I mean, gone are the days when you used to start at the bottom of HR and work your way up and eventually become CHRO. And, you know, now 70% of newly appointed CHROs, or chief people officers, don't come from the HR function, right? Because HR people tend to be fairly stuck in their ways. And the number one reason why someone was chosen for that CHRO job, if they didn't come from HR, is because they were not comfortable with data and analytics. They weren't comfortable with change, right? So when HR can disrupt itself before somebody else comes and disrupts it, you know, then you know you have a healthy and successful HR organization. Because you can see from this graphic, HR professionals spend too much time in doing transactional things that should be done by technology, right? HR people are in desperate need. There is so much change going on in the organization. HR professionals are in incredible demand. But what's in demand is the HR business partner part, right? The consultant, the advisor, the coach, the strategist, right? That human contact, that's the part of HR that is in desperate need. Nobody needs HR administrators. Nobody needs more, you know, spreadsheet processor people, right? Give that to technology. Understand the difference between what technology does and the incredibly important part that people do, and lean into that people part. So I like this. I like this slide because it really shows kind of the current state of where we're spending our money, right? Where we're investing our time and our effort with our humans, and also our program spend, right? And we're spending our money in the wrong places. So current spend is upfront in recruiting and getting people in the door. And then once they're in the door, we kind of ignore them and we just hope for the best. And they probably have a pretty crappy onboarding, and we're not very good about setting their goals. But then, oh crap, when they don't deliver their goals, then we're going to be really good about giving them training, because we realize that we didn't tell them what to do, and then all of a sudden they're failing. So we better teach them some stuff because they're wrong. But then we don't give them feedback through talent management. But then we put a lot of effort into rewards and recognition, and then they attrit. And we go, what the hell happened, right? So if we look at the next slide, so we can sort of compare this, we can see that if you invest in technology, you can put your investment and your effort where it's actually needed, which is when the humans are in your company, right? That's where you should be spending your time and your money in the HR department, and you should automate the other pieces, right? You can get so much more done for the same amount of budget, the same amount of humans, if you just are refocusing what the humans are doing. You're moving your humans away from the drudgery and the monotony and the painful soul-crushing work, and you get that your humans in HR doing work that only humans can do.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's so much more material over here, but I just realized that, Jenny, we are like just, you know, over our hour already. But you know, there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of great content over here, which I'm not going to do justice by skipping ahead. But you know, certainly, if you guys have any questions, you know, feel free to reach out to myself or Jenny, and you know, Jenny can talk a lot more about, you know, what the future of work looks like, and you know, the human versus machine productivity, and also why HR has a bad rap at the end of the day. They try to do so much with so little too. And I think that Jenny, having spent a whole career in HR, she can certainly tell you how important the function is, and a lot of things that happen behind the scenes is because of HR doing their work. So I have such a great respect for this profession.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for spending time chatting with us. It was fun.
Thank you, Jenny. Your insight is always invaluable, and I know that just from the engagement in the chat, everybody appreciated the insight. So, everybody, I encourage you guys to go through your program, make friends along the way, and share your thoughts with Jenny and myself if you have any that you'd like to share, and we'll make sure that we connect on LinkedIn, or just send us an email. Okay. But everybody, thank you very much. Appreciate your time, and Jenny, thank you very much, and have a great night.
Great. Thanks.